Russia calls itself an energy superpower. So why are drivers staring at no fuel signs? In the recent weeks, we've seen long lines, limits at gas pumps, coupons for a certain amount of gas. In Russia, they're called talony, and many angry motorists. Check this out. This is just one of the pictures that we could see in Russia over the last few weeks. The sign on the pump says, gas only for companies, not for people. The economic train of Russia has finally arrived at the station, and that's dead end. It has many faces, and gas shortages are one of these faces. Well, some of these faces. Check it out again. Love this picture. This is one of the face of the economic tsunami, and this is kind of in-your-face picture. Welcome to weekly economic update from Russia. The economy is changing so fast that every single week there's plenty to talk about. It's September 3rd, 2025, and this is week 34 and week 35 in review. If you want short summary of this live stream in this video, all is going to hell. And if you want numbers, figures, facts, then stick around because I have plenty of that coming up for you. Howdy everyone. My name is Konstantin. Welcome to Inside Russia, the YouTube channel where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian. As usual, you will not find any BS, propaganda, or lies here. Instead, you will find lots of truth, common sense, and logic. Every Wednesday, you find lots of economical facts, numbers, figures, all that, because this is the economic review. Some emotions too. The mood among the economic experts in Russia is pretty dark. Has been pretty dark in a couple, let's say 6 or 7 weeks. For the second part of the summer, the main discussion topic has been recession of Russian economy. Both officials and experts have been talking of economic recession extensively. Внешэкономбанк, one of Russia's largest state-owned banks, even officially admitted that Russian economy has entered recession. It's official, and there have been a lot of unofficial talk, and all the experts there are all right. The recession, a bad one, it's here already, today. And on September 3rd, today, we received the official confirmation of that in a very unusual form from the very top of Russia. And I mean the very top. The Tsar himself, he started talking of the economic recession. Check this out. But not in Russia, in European countries. Leading Eurozone economies are in recession, Putin says. This is fresh stuff, just came out a couple hours ago. He was giving a press conference in Beijing. So, I guess, European countries, their economies are in trouble. Now, why would Putin start talking about that? About other countries? And the answer is pretty clear. He just kicked off a propaganda campaign to prepare Russians for the bad times. The propaganda will be selling this idea that economic recession is normal. Even rich, prosperous European countries are in recession now. Well, they are because the Tsar says so. So, Russia's recession is just a part of a global economic decline. In reality, of course, it couldn't have been far from the truth. Russian economic recession has been created artificially, caused by the war in Ukraine and by transformation of Russian economy from quasi market economy into state controlled war economy. Okay? But that's not what Russians are going to be hearing from now on. This is yet another propaganda campaign. It's right there, in front of your eyes, unfolding. He who has eyes, let him see. And I want you to see. Now, to the analysis. The economy can be analyzed at three main levels, each with own focus and scope. They are individual level, also called microeconomic agents among the economists. It studies individuals, household, and businesses. Then goes microeconomy. It studies specific sectors or markets or companies. And then it's sectors or markets. The companies it's microeconomic agents, so I don't want to confuse you. And then there's the third level, macroeconomy, and it studies entire national economy. And this is how I structure my weekly economic updates here at Inside Russia, and this is not an exception. I would like to start with microeconomic agents. Basically, it's about what impact changes in the Russian economy have on the lives of regular folks. And I have a couple personal stories, fresh from Russia today, this morning I heard them. Now, I want to tell you of two middle-class families. Well, one family and one person. Middle-class, educated, normal, smart. First, formerly middle-class, I should add. One family lives near Moscow. A husband, a wife, and two teenage kids. Happy marriage. Success, if you look at success from the point of view of Russia. The husband is an engineer. The wife is a middle manager at a publishing house. A well-to-do family. Not rich, but, they're doing okay. They visited my friend in Moscow, and they live not too far from Moscow, so in a very good, rich part of Russian Federation. So they visited my friend in Moscow for a birthday party, private party. And at the end of the party, out of good tone, they were offered to take food that was unfinished. Take it home. Many people offer that. I've heard that before. But in Russia, nobody takes food home. Not usually. It's just not done, period. It's not traditional. Well, the family, in the interest, gladly took the leftovers with them for the first time. And my friend has known that family for a very, very long time. My friend was shocked. Now, he gave them the food, whatever was left, and he's back to Tashkent. He visited Moscow. And he told me that he'd never seen anything like that before. And the family, I'm talking about was very upfront about their troubles. With current food prices, they just don't have much money to spend. So they are pinching pennies now, and they're not hiding it. So they gladly took the food home, and they were happy about it. It's incredible. Quite a change in their economic behavior from the past. And the second is true story from one of the provincial cities in central Russia. It's a big city, population of 1 million people. So it's area where wealth of Russia is concentrated. There are currently 1 million plus population cities in Russia, 18 or 19, don't quote me on that, but Moscow, St. Petersburg are the biggest ones, of course, and most of wealth of Russia, in terms of, money, jobs, projects, concentrated in those cities. So we're talking about a fairly normal, fairly good part of Russia. Now, a young single woman of 35 years old, very nice lady with high education, extensive work experience, with decent job, She is real. She is with name, which obviously I'm not going to tell you. She is a psychologist working at a private clinic, and at the same time, she has her own practice on the side. So she's not rich, but she's well to do. She likes to travel, like no husband, no kids, she just by herself. She likes to travel to exotic countries in the Southeast Asia and Africa. And that's what she's been doing for the past 10 years. She traveled many places and she travels quite frequently. Well, she hasn't traveled in 2025. The reason? Well, there are two reasons. First reason is there's no company. She never travels alone, only with friends. And she has plenty of friends, all professional, all with high education, with jobs, who share her interest for traveling, the same interest. That I call it her circle. Well, none of the people from her circle now have money to travel any longer. And her own disposable income has also shrunk, and she's watching money. She's not pinching penny, saving on food like the first family. But she's watching. She's much more careful about her money now. So no traveling. No traveling for her, no traveling for her friends. To me, these are two more pieces of the puzzle called current economic situation in Russia. I take stories like that, not just these two stories, but stories like that of companies, of people, of situations, of events, and I put them together. They give me the current economic situation in Russia. And let me tell you, it's not well. Now let me continue with the microeconomy. Before I do that, let me thank you. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for being part of Inside Russia community, because this is not the channel, this is the community. Thank you for your prayers, for your love. Thank you for your messages. Thank you for your support. Thank you for buying me coffees at buymecoffee.com, for PayPal, Patreon. Oh boy, still demonetized. It's over a year now, going on a 13th month. I don't know if I'm going to be remonetized ever by Google. But regardless, monetized or demonetized, I give you a promise that despite all the pressure applied onto me by Google, by Russian state, I continue my stand against Russian government, against unfairness, against the war, and I will continue telling you the truth. You have my word on that. Thank you so very much. Now I continue to microeconomy. I continue to microeconomy level. I want to talk of quite a few industries today, but I'll start with the financial industry. Number one is banking. I have been telling for over 2 years that Russian banking system industry is in trouble and a big crisis is coming. And one significant event happened yesterday. The Central Bank of Russia revoked the license of Tavrichesky Commercial Bank. The bank has closed the door. It's bust. The central bank, right here. Let me just give this to you. The banking license of the credit institution, that's how the Central Bank of Russia calls commercial bank, Tavrichesky Bank, has been revoked due to the lack of prospects for further implementation of the rehabilitation model. Well, let me tell you something. I learned about this news from the central bank website. It released this information as a press release today, September 3rd. There isn't much about this event in the media. And I see that as a sign of propaganda and oppression. This information is very, very important, and it's scary. And Russian state is downplaying it. You can find a few pieces of information here and there. For example, in RBK, couple other medias, but they are mostly for people from business and from the industry, not for wider audience. The regulator explained this decision to revoke the license by saying that Tavrichesky Bank had completely run out of equity. In other words, no money left. No money left. Well, no kidding. How did that happen? Everyone is silent about that. They're stating the fact. We're taking the license away from this bank. It's basically bust. It's closing doors. It has closed doors. But how did that happen? Well, it's silence. It's very important to understand. Will other banks follow? What has happened before? Is it a fraud? Is it a failure of economic model? What is that? Obviously, we want to know. By the way, Tavrichesky Bank was not your small bank. It was ranked 60th in Russia, in the middle of first 100 banks. Number 60. This isn't small potatoes. The depositors, the clients, are promised to be returned 100% of the remaining funds on the accounts, but no more than 1.4 million rubles in total per person, and that's a little under $20,000. Basically, in America, it's FDIC, Federal Depositor Insurance Company, FDIC. Every bank account is, by law, insured by FDIC. In Russia, it's the same thing, only it's insured by Russia's central bank, and the amount is a little 1.4 million rubles, a little under $20,000. That's people, businesses, big and small, who were banks' clients, who held their money in the bank. They're out of luck because there's no bank insurance for companies in Russia, only for people. So why do I find this bank collapse significant, and why I made it the first news? Because it is the first step. When that domino line falls, there's always first piece of domino falling. It's happened. I forecast there will be more. Please keep tuning in. This is big. I think that this incredible landslide that I forecast will happen in Russian economy. It's happening, but it's not the grand landslide yet. Okay, but it will get there, and it'll start with banks falling. So very important. So number 2, cutting federal budget expenses. Now, Russia is spending so much more than it's earning. Okay, and that has resulted in, over 3 years, it has resulted in a huge, record high budget deficit. Now, what do you do when you have a hole in your bank account, when you are in red? You start earning more, which is impossible in today's Russia. It earns less and less every month. Or you start cutting your expenses, spend less. And that's exactly what they're doing. So they're cutting federal budget expenses. Small-size and middle-sized businesses have historically been helped by the state through the federal program. There's even an association of small and middle-sized businesses called MSP. Okay, I have personal experience dealing with MSP. In 2020, one of our projects participated in an acceleration program, and there was support available. Not much, but at least there was something. The support came in the form of subsidized bank loans. For example, you'd take a bank loan at 10%, and then the state would cover half of it or most of it, So it was a good deal. And the support also came in form of grants. Well, this is 2025 and the support is vanishing. In the first 6 months of 2025, the state spent 40% less supporting small businesses than in the first 6 months of 2024. This is another piece of puzzle that, when placed into a big puzzle, shows us that what current situation in Russian economy is. And I think this is normal that the state is cutting expenses. I expect so much more cuts, and I can't wait until they release the draft of the budget for 2026. It's going to be phenomenally bad. But I think this is normal for a current situation in the economy. There's simply not enough money. You wait, they cut every single expense possible. You wait, they will not be paying salaries or will be paying with delays to those who get paid by the state. That's going to happen. Number 3, every third company in Russia, 30% of companies to be precise, have plans on cutting labor costs. The cuts will come in different forms, such as cutting wages, cutting bonuses, laying people off, etc., not hiring new people. According to Russian Union of Business and Industry, RSPP, 65% of all companies in Russia plan to cut costs as they are facing problems in business, decline in sales, and lower profit margins. That is another piece of puzzle that kind of gives us a better picture of what the heck is going on in Russian economy. Number 4. Now agriculture is on my list. Agriculture is big. It's the foundation of one of the foundation cornerstones of Russian economy. Well, first I would like to speak not of agriculture in general, but of potatoes. Don't laugh. Please don't laugh. Potatoes are very important for Russia. Potatoes, eggs, and flour, and obviously water, which is plentiful, that's the foundation of Russian diet. As long as people have that, they won't starve. We didn't starve in the USSR because we have exactly that. We had exactly that. Potatoes, flours, eggs, always had it. You can cook lots of things with that stuff. Our moms and grandmas were very, very resourceful, a little bit of this, a little bit of potatoes, a little bit of flour, eggs, mix it up, bake it, boil it. You won't go hungry. Now, things are changing. I have reported before that there is a potato crisis in Russia. Still is. In 2025, Russian people literally ran out of potatoes. Well, Russian manufacturers, producers, growers ran out of potatoes, and Russia was forced to import potatoes from Pakistan and Egypt. And later, they started importing from China. Now, this is September 3rd, and this is the middle of potato harvest. They usually start harvesting in mid to late August and continue throughout September. Harvesting is still underway, and intermediate reports are coming in, and the numbers, shocking. Well, not to us, because we kind of in the know, but for the rest of the world, they're shocking. They shouldn't be, but they're shocking. From 23% to 28% decline in potato harvest compared to 2024. Quarter at best, third at worst. The reasons that the state is giving, well, the bad weather. The real reasons are people and the seeds. The farmers refuse to grow potatoes because they don't have people to help. They don't have people to work for them. They are forced to raise the salaries to the levels, well, where potatoes cost as if they were made out of gold. And they simply not competitive in the market, so they refuse to grow. And the second reason is there are no more Dutch seeds. As it turns out, lots of seeds Russians were buying from the Netherlands, and because they're genetically modified, they give much better products, crops, and much larger yield. Well, Russia doesn't buy seeds from the Netherlands any longer. It's not allowed by the farmers, not allowed by law. So their yield has shrunk tremendously. Combined, all of that gives historically low record of harvest, potato harvest. Goodbye, potatoes. Hello, high prices. Will we see shortages? Before I would say no way. But now I say very possible. And we definitely are going to see incredibly high prices. Just to give you prices of last year. Now, when I lived in Russia, I paid about 20 rubles for a kilo of potatoes, or 2 pounds. Now, this early summer, potatoes in Russia were sold for as much as 180 rubles. 9-fold increase. What they gonna cost this coming winter, especially next spring? Oh my gosh, folks, please keep on tuning in, because potatoes are very important in Russia. And no, they don't make vodka out of potatoes, because a lot of people comment in the live streams and in the comments say, oh, Russians won't have vodka. No. They don't make vodka out of potatoes. They make it out of wheat. And the next topic, I'm going to talk about wheat now and about agriculture in general. 2 things I want to mention this week. First is wheat, and I mentioned 2 weeks ago of wheat harvest in 2025. Now, Russia, one of the agricultural bread-making products in Russia is wheat, because Russia exports a lot of wheat and, bread and entertainment, basically. Bread is very important. Wheat is flour. As I said before, you have potatoes, you have flour, you have eggs, then you're all set. You're not hungry. So, in 2025, in Russia, in the country's largest wheat growing region, Rostov, the wheat harvest is disastrous. 8 million tons of wheat harvested compared to 12 million in 2024 and 16 million in 2023. So this year, twice as little wheat harvested as 2 years ago. The acting governor of Rostov province got the wheat growers together in a big meeting when the numbers were released in mid-August and promised to meet with the Russian president and to ask for financial support and subsidies for wheat growers in Rostov province. He also promised some help, some support from the provincial government. But the thing is, the province doesn't have money to help the farmers. So he must ask from Putin. And you know what? He actually delivered on his promise. A week later, he met with Russian President Vladimir Putin. And he might have even asked about the support for the local farmers. We don't know that because that meeting was not open for public, but the fact that he did meet was reported on. Well, support was not given. And now the farmers don't really know what to do. There are reports coming up from Rostov province, and this is where I'm zeroing in on because it's the largest wheat growing region of Russia, that they basically are going under. A lot of them. There is a wheat grower union, and its head, Zlachevsky, the guy I actually met quite some years ago. I had one of my companies start up a marketplace for selling soft commodities, including wheat. And we wanted to bring the union on our side, the grain union, Zernovoy Soyuz, that's how it's called, the grain union. And I met Zlachevsky, I met its head, and he, good guy, very reasonable. We talked of the possibilities. Unfortunately, nothing happened for us. But I remember he left very good impression. And now he is he's sounding alarms all over, saying that a lot of farmers, they're just gonna get bankrupt, and that's it. And the entire industry is going to fall apart because they can't afford to grow wheat at the current prices and at the current regulations. They basically don't know what to do. And the second news also goes along with the first news, and it's about wheat. The second news I find very significant this week from the agriculture, and I think this news needs no explanation. The Minister of Agriculture is asking the government, the federal government, the Ministry of Economic Development to be precise, to create a ban on declaring bankruptcies in agriculture. That's right. Farmers will not be able to declare bankruptcy. The official reason for that? Bad weather conditions. They resulted in, situation where a lot of farmers want to stop working and seek for protection from the creditors. Now, why is that so? Why is such initiative from Russian Ministry of Agriculture? The answer is obvious. The ministry knows what's coming, and they're very afraid of that. They pretty much, by announcing that they're seeking to create the ban for bankruptcies, they pretty much sum up the current state of Russian agriculture. I am waiting with interest what's going to happen soon. I have seen bad times with food. The second part of the 80s was terrible. 1989, 1990, 1991, bad stuff. Long lines, shortages of food all over the places in all Russian cities except for Moscow. But what's coming now, I think this is going to be in the league of its own. It's much, much bigger. So I am waiting with interest, and I'm expecting the news. And I think they're going to be coming in every day now. So please keep on tuning in. I would like to speak of Russian space program. That's number 6. Well, officially, Roscosmos, that is Russia's space agency, is dead. Energia is the company that basically is Roscosmos. Energia was founded by Sergei Korolev, the founder of a Soviet space program back in the 50s. And since then, it's been an official consolidated holding company with hundreds of different plants and companies inside this company, inside the holding. Okay, and it's basically, it has been the basis of Russia's, or Soviet, and then later Russia's space program. Everything that was produced, the engines, the fuel, the rockets, everything, it was made inside NPO Energia. НПО in Russian means научно-производственное объединение, Scientific Industrial Unity, Union. So НПО Energia has declared bankruptcy. It's official. It's done. Okay. Deserves for a dedicated live stream or a video. It's sad for Russians. It's funny for me. I don't really know. I don't know what to how to comment it right now. Roscosmos is dead. Now, number 7. Metallurgical industry recorded the record decline in production of steel. In July, the output of the entire industry combined declined by 10.2% compared to July 2024. Now, this isn't unexpected. The industry has been in decline for quite some time now, and one of the industry's top CEOs warned pretty much the entire Russia that the metallurgical plants in Russia might close, all of them. It happened in St. Petersburg International Economic Forum in July, and it's happening now. The record decline. One thing interesting here is, as we know, Russia is waging the war on Ukraine. As we know, Russian military-industrial complex has grown tremendously in the last 3.5 years. As we know, the spendings. So what I've been talking about right now is Russia is spending more and earning less. So spending much more than before, and most of the spendings go to support and sustain the war. Russia had a very large savings account, the foundation for welfare foundation, National Welfare Foundation. It's been spent, and it was thrown to support the war, to feed. It's been fed to the military-industrial complex. So we assume, we don't know for sure because, of course, the data is classified, but we assume that there are so many more missiles, so many more tanks, guns, ammo has been produced for the past 3.5 years. Now, how is that so? That there's more weapons, more tanks, more planes are produced, but the steel production is declining. What are they producing tanks and planes out of? Perhaps paper? Perhaps wood? Well, that industry is also in trouble. Both wood and paper has been in decline. So what? Out of what? I don't have the answer right now, but it's something to think about. Perhaps you have the answer. Let me know down below in the comments. But I feel this is a very important question. What are they producing war stuff out of? I definitely am going to be investigating, so please stay tuned. Now, there are quite a few news. Every single day produces an incredible amount of news. You know, this is fall, and in Russia, fall officially starts on September 1st, unlike in the Western countries where it's September 22nd. So the fall has started. Summer was fairly slow, but in Russia, historically, summers are slow because people take time off, vacation, good weather. Now it's time to go back to work, go back to business, go back to their normal activities. Kids go back to school, and the business activity starts going up again. I have forecasted that the real problems of Russia begin in the fall of 2025, and there now. We're seeing steel factories reduce production. We're seeing the first bank go bust. We see troubles all over the place in Russia, and with people, with companies, and with the state. And I just want to let you know that There are so many news that come out every single day. I carefully select 9 news that I find important, and with commentaries analysis, I make them available to patrons of Inside Russia. So if you want to stay on top of things Russia, consider becoming patron and stay in the know. Check it out. I'm going to place the link down below in the description of the video and in the pinned comment. So check it out. It will give you a great deal of more understanding of what's happening in Russia. Now, let's go to macroeconomy. The level of macroeconomy, basically, it shows how the health of the entire economy is going. I'm not going to tell you much about it because I'm waiting for the numbers for the summer to come up, and they usually release the numbers in early September. So perhaps next week or week after, I'm going to give you a very detailed description of macroeconomic situation in Russia as of month of September. Couple things. Consumer spendings are declining. In August, real consumer spendings rose by 5% compared to August 2024. Taking into the account that the official inflation rate is nearly 10%, I think it's 9.52, and unofficial real-world inflation is much higher, and different experts give different numbers, so it's safe to say that the real-life inflation is well over 20%. So based on that, we see a sharp decline in consumer spendings. And it's obvious. Russian companies cut labor costs, they pay less to the employees, and many companies go bankrupt. So regular people have less disposable income. Therefore, they save more, they spend more on food, and they spend less on consumer goods and things like that. That's one of the faces of the economic tsunami, and that's a pretty ugly face. And another macroeconomic news is of inflation. It's growing. There was a period of a few weeks, 3 weeks to be exact, in Russia, with lower inflation growth. Couple of weeks, the official data came out, there was deflation, meaning inflation was in the negative. Now, it is very normal for Russia for slow inflation growth in the summer months because of agriculture, because there's new harvest for everything, okay, fruits and veggies, and that drives prices low. Large supply lowers prices, and therefore inflation slows down. Every single year it happens. This year, that slowdown was, it happened, but it was lower than slowdowns of the past years. And now it's over. That season of low inflation, low growth of inflation and deflation is over. Inflation is going up again. No numbers right now. I'm waiting for the numbers to be released, but it's pretty high. I will have the numbers next week, but I think it's safe to say that well over 20%, perhaps close to 40%. But we'll see. At the end, done with the macro stuff. At the end, on the gas shortage. Oh boy. I don't even know where to start, folks. The fuel crisis that engulfed Russia after drone strikes on major oil refineries has reached farthest corners of Russia. Now, their oil refining industry in Russia has never been a strong one. It has always relied on foreign technologies. Russia never developed own oil refining technologies. Therefore, foreign companies, the owners of so-called processes, came to Russia and sold their equipment and their processes to large oil refineries. Okay, well, most all companies, foreign companies left. They do not supply spare parts. They do not supply technologies. They do not train personnel. They do not provide their own engineers and support. And on top of that, Ukraine, so the refineries aren't properly maintained. They're working. Okay, some of them are newer, like the refinery in Rostov province, Novoshakhtinsky and PZ. Okay, that some of them just few years old. And then some of them are fairly old. So they are all still working, maintained somehow, one way or another. But their efficiency has been going down. And now the Ukrainians started applying a new strategy. They are hitting Russian oil refineries in series. Before it was one hit here, one hit there, this oil refinery on fire, out of operation for some time, that oil refinery. Now, this is a strike, a massive strategical strike that is spread over time. Meaning the Ukrainians are sending drones after drones after drones to the same oil refineries and strike them and put them out of operation. Now, the latest, as of August 26, there's information as calculation, and it didn't come officially from Russian authorities because the information on oil refining output and everything that is has anything to do with oil refining has been classified. Obviously, it's pretty bad numbers, right? So Reuters, the Western company, calculated and came up with that as of August 26, Russian oil companies had lost 17% of their refinery capacity. Almost 1/5, 17%. To add insult to injury, Ukrainians recently bombed Druzhba pipeline, Unecha compressor station. Now, Druzhba is the largest oil pipeline system in the world. It was built in the 60s by the USSR with help of Germany. Germany provided pipes because Soviet Union did not produce pipes, required pipes. And then oil was traded for pipes to Germany. And then also that Druzhba, the friendship pipeline, delivered oil from Russian oil fields in the Volga-Ural oil region, and also gas to the countries, the Western countries, and mostly to the countries of Eastern Germany, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Poland, East Germany. Okay, so Unecha compressor station has been bombed and put out of operation, pretty much destroyed. And it's a huge blow to already damaged Russian oil exports. Oil through Druzhba pipeline goes to Slovakia currently. Perhaps Hungary, Slovakia is that I am sure of. And every single month brings about 100 billion ruble loss to Russian industry of exporting oil. So guess what happens when you lose 17% of your oil refining capability in the country? You simply get less gas and diesel fuel. And when that happens, literally overnight, what do you think happens at the gas stations? Nothing good. This happens. There have been shortages reported in a few regions of Russia, and regions that Russia occupied, the Ukrainian regions. Um, I've seen this picture before. I've seen when you don't have enough fuel at the gas stations. Actually, I was growing up in the situation when it was considered normal. It was luck to get fuel at a fuel pump, fuel station, at a gas station. Um, my personal experience back in, I believe it was 1986, there was a crisis, full blown crisis. Not enough fuel refined. Of course, there was enough fuel for the army and for the government services for party members and so forth, but there wasn't enough fuel for the rest of us. And my family traveled to Crimea. My father was born and raised in Crimea, and I have a lot of relatives there. And I remember we stayed at a village in the mountains where my dad was born and grew up. And it's 4 miles or 6 kilometers away from the sea line, sea coast. And every morning we would take a bus. There were just two buses, one in the morning, 9 a.m., and it would take everyone in the village to the village, another village, a bigger one that was located right on the sea, right on the coast. And from that village, you could take another bus to go to a city. So that's how people traveled, basically. And at 6 p.m., the bus would be taking everyone back. A lot of people worked. They lived in the smaller village in the mountains, and they worked in a bigger village. So that was like a kind of like a means of transportation for people. And I remember I was 10 years old, and I absolutely hated walking, because I liked riding, because we were forced to walk a lot. We didn't have buses, we didn't have cars. Well, obviously no personal cars, but bus service was terrible. So when you walk for pleasure, like I do now, that's one thing. But when you walk out of necessity, when you're a kid, that's absolutely another thing. So I hated walking. And I remember that if we didn't catch the bus, then there would be no cars, because people in the village, well, there were a couple cars, a couple people with cars, and there were a couple trucks that were used for village life. But there was no gas. And I remember that on a few days, the bus was canceled because the bus didn't have diesel fuel. And that was the official reason given: no fuel, shortages of fuel. And I remember we had to walk for 4 miles. It took us about 1 hour. And I remember how terrible I felt walking in the sun. And that's how a fuel shortage looks like. In Russia, fuel shortages are back. The reports started appearing about 2 weeks ago. And the very first time I heard, I said, whoa, I heard that music before. It's not pretty. 4 Russian regions started reporting shortages. And the worst region was, well, it's Crimea. It's been annexed by Russia, part of Ukraine, but currently under Russian infrastructure supply, I should say. Okay. In Crimea, they introduced the coupons for gas. Basically, at certain gas stations, you had to have a certain coupon. It's called talon, okay, ticket. You'd have to present it to get gas, because there was not enough gas. So they preserved gas for companies, for commercial vehicles, and that's exactly what the sign says. It says only for commercial vehicles for companies. Back in the USSR, when there was problem with gas, they were gas stations that had plenty of excellent gas, but they were only for party people, party members. I remember there was one gas station in Moscow, was like a legend. I always had gas, but you had to present certain pass, tickets or talone to get gas there. I think in Crimea, it's kind of the same thing now. It's you have to know somebody. You have to know, someone in administration, or you have to be a part of KGB, a part of Prosecutor General's office, and things like that to get that permission to get gas. And I think those people would get permissions with no problem. But the rest of us, out of luck. Now, there were other provinces having the same problem in the far east of Russia. In its full-blown fuel crisis, right? Zabaikalsky Krai and the far east of Russia saw very long lines, and the authorities explained it by the increased demand. But really, it's bogus, because what the real reason for this crisis is lower supply, okay? Russia never had any problems with increased demand of gasoline, decreased supply. It was always enough gas, okay? There have been reports coming out that the situation started normalizing in September. I don't believe those reports. I'm looking closely, and I would like to share one more thing with you, folks. This is a very odd situation going on in Russia right now. When lions appeared, they were all over the media. They even made it to national media, like news websites and so forth, newspapers. There were quite a few pictures and videos of long lines and people very angry at the gas stations in the Telegram channels. And guess what happens after? They disappear. Few days later, the shortages of gasoline are still there, but they're not reported any longer. As if this isn't a problem in Russia, it has never been. We are seeing propaganda working at its best. The problems are still there because Ukrainians are hitting more and more refineries every single night. There are fires, explosions get reported from the refineries. The situation is not getting any better. 17%, imagine, 17%. This is huge. And yet, there's very little reporting coming out of Russia. Well, I still have my sources. I still have my reports. So please tune in to get more information on this growing crisis. And I'm absolutely sure this is just the beginning. This is far from normalization. This is a beginning of something grand. By the way, that oil refinery I told you at Novoshakhtinsk, not too far from Rostov, that was the first oil refinery hit by the Ukrainians in the summer of 2022. First ever hit delivered to Russian territory. I remember it was in July, and I was sitting in Rostov, and it was some 60 miles away from me. Well, obviously, I didn't hear the explosion, but I remember local news started buzzing. We're like, wow, Novoshakhtinsk NPZ was hit by a drone. And I saw 2 drones flying and hitting one after another. And the latest, the Ukrainians have changed strategy. It's not hit and run situation anymore. It's more like hit after hit after hit into strategical places inside refineries. I think that deserves a separate live stream. But anyway, I want to tell you that Novoshakhtinsky oil refinery has been put out of operation. The fire was burning there for 5 days. They were not able to put fire for 5 days in a row. And they basically took water from the entire city of Novoshakhtinsk and used it, to pump and pump and pump. And people were stuck without water, and they started complaining. They started, recording these messages to Putin to bring water back and so forth. But now, all employees who work at the Novoshakhtinsk oil refinery, they're not getting paid. Yeah. Isn't it interesting? Okay. What are forecasts for what's the forecast for oil refinery strikes? I think they're going to be growing. I think the fuel crisis in Russia will be growing. I think there will be more and more shortages. There will be more and more lines at the gas stations, and there will be more and more angry people. Will that be enough for Russians to stand up and start protesting? No, I don't think so. Russian people are professional sufferers. Don't count on such a small thing as a lack of gas, motivate them to stand up and demand changes. No, that's not going to happen. But the gas shortages are going to be adding to the demise of Russian economy. Friends, thank you very much for watching today's message. Carthago delenda est.